Welcome to today's workshop, and we will be discussing the TOEFL iBT test, and specifically we're going to discuss the speaking aspect and the reading aspect. But I'll give you like an overview of the entire test. So we would briefly talk about like the current test format, what you would expect to encounter in the test center or your at-home testing if you choose to take the test that way. And this event is hosted by the Foreign Language and Teaching Center of NTU. And my name is Larry. So today's agenda is the overview of the test. And I'll start discussing the speaking section, the question types that will be on the speaking sections, and some suggestions. And in addition, I'll be briefly talking about note-taking. I think note-taking is an especially important skill on this test. Needless to say, the listening section can have like 5 minutes long of audio that you would need to listen to and digest the information and answer the questions. But on the speaking test and the writing section, they also use audio files in addition to the test interface present words on the screen. So I would say note-taking can help you deal with at least like 3 sections of the test. The reading section is the only one currently where they do not play an audio file to you. And then we'll be transitioning to the reading section and specifically the question types. And we'll be talking about the reading section specific problems, and we'll enter the Q&A portion of this presentation. Just out of curiosity, who has taken this test before? Oh, okay. I did my undergraduate here at NTU, and I scored a score of 112 on the iBT. I know there are people who scored crazy scores above me, but and then in addition, I scored around 160 points on the law school admissions test for the United States of America. I didn't list the specific score I had, so you wouldn't be able to predict which school I might go to. So on the current test, there will be 4 sections: the reading, the listening, the speaking, and the writing. And most likely it will be presented in that order, but it might change. But my experience was it was presented in that specific order. The reading section will be around 35 minutes with 20 questions, and there will be 2 paragraphs. There will not be comparative paragraphs like other tests like SAT or the LSAT. The listening section is around 36 minutes long with 28 questions. The speaking section is around 16 minutes long and has 4 tasks. The writing section has around 29 minutes with 2 tasks. As some of you might know, since July last year, the writing section has been updated, and specifically the second task will be you will read 3 paragraphs. 1 paragraph is from a teacher, 2 from his perspective of 2 students, and you will write your own opinion in the test interface. And I think it's important in that specific task to at least write one of your own opinion instead of just listing what the teacher and the other 2 students said. So the whole test you can expect to take around 116 minutes, around 2 hours. And it's important to know that there aren't any breaks in the current test format. So as you know, the maximum grade you can score on this test is for the iBT version is 120, and depending on your own career goals, you might need a score of 80, 90, but the most rigorous schools usually require 100. And in addition to that, you might need another standardized test like the GRE, the GMAT, or MCAT for your graduate programs. So you have the choice to choose to take this test at a test center or at home. I recommend you take it at a test center, because if you want to take it at home, they have very strict requirements on how your room should be laid out. On the official website, they have like the conditions for your desk. You cannot have any other electronics beside your laptop. And in addition, it might need to be a laptop because you need to scan the room for the proctor to see the environment. You need to place your phone in a position where the proctor can see, but it's not within arm's reach, so it's kind of hard to comply with these rules. And for this test, you do not need specific academic knowledge on certain subjects to be able to answer the questions. They will give the information to you. And in general, for the speaking test, speaking responses, some people worry if the foreign accent can potentially impact your score negatively. I do not think that's the case. Well, it is according to the official grading rubric that they will not penalize students if they have a foreign accent. But your response do need to be coherent for someone to understand. So at the test center, the process is you go in and then they will verify your ID. I recommend you to use a passport. I've heard people got into problems for trying to use other forms of ID, so just try to use your passport. And there is one, the test center I had experience with was pretty horrible, but I'm not going to say the name here. You can ask me in private and I'll tell you, and hopefully you won't have a terrible experience, but it's important to check Google ratings on the test center. And as another thing I want to cover is they will give you scratch paper to write notes. You should try to keep your writing small because some proctors don't like to give out additional papers to students. So that's one thing to consider. And are there any questions at this point? So let's dive right into the speaking portion. The first question for the speaking response would usually be a personal preference question. Like, do you prefer classes in a lecture style, or do you prefer a class in a group discussion atmosphere? That kind of question. So they will usually give you 15 seconds to prepare and 45 seconds to respond on the first question. Questions 2 and 4 are quite different from the very first question. It will be an integrated task, which means they will usually show some sort of writing on the test interface, and then there will usually be an audio file where you have to listen to. So that's why I encourage people to at least try to take notes. And to respond, of course, you use the microphone they give you. It's important that during the check-in process at the test center, you make sure your microphone is working, because I heard that did happen where someone's microphone didn't work, and then it's like, oh, they have to take it again. It's a waste of time and money. And for those of you who have a decent English skill, I would actually recommend you take the test faster to reach the speaking part, because when everyone's speaking, it gives you like this psychological interference with your thinking. So if you're the one of the first group of people to start talking in this test center, you would usually have a better quality of time answering the questions. Okay, here are the specifics for the very first question. It's likely that they will ask you a very simple question pertaining to your personal preference. There won't be too much background information you have to read in order to answer that question. So my suggestion is you immediately state your opinion on the matter. They don't like people who say, oh, I understand the value of this option. I also understand the value of the other option. No, they want you to have your own thoughts. So please, for the very first thing you do is state your preference. Once you state your opinion, what the subsequent responses should be your evidence or your examples from your life, why you would have that specific preference. And details are great to elaborate on why you think a certain way. And as the time passes and you reach, your time is running low, if you can, it's best to state a conclusion sentence, but I understand like that's kind of difficult to do. If your audio gets cut off and you didn't like have a very nice speaking structure, I don't think that's a problem. I had my responses cut off quite a bit and I think I did okay. As long as you're able to formulate sentences and deliver your response intelligibly, I think that's the key to obtaining a satisfactory grade for the very first question. And as I stated before, that foreign accent don't impact the quality of your responses as long as the words are coherent. The grader can understand what you're trying to say. So this is an example of the very first question. If possible, could you gather in like groups of 2 and then try to answer this question? Would you prefer to work at one job your entire life or to switch jobs every 5 years? Do you have a certain preference? I'm sorry, it's a lot of pressure. Do you have a position that you would like to choose?
Yes.
And is it like one job or switch jobs every 5 years?
Switch jobs every 5 years.
Okay. Do you mind sharing why?
I think some people that choose what they want to do after that graduates, and then maybe that's not his or her passion, and maybe that's not the best job he wants to do, but if he or her or she stop finding their passion, maybe their value of the life ends there when they are young.
Yeah, that's excellent response. I'm sorry to like ask you to answer it, but here's something for your trouble. So what you just said was perfect, and you might receive like a very high grade on this specific question. So what you did was you stated your position, and then you gave some responses. And as you go through your time, you wanna finish up your response with a conclusion, but that's a very hard thing to do. So this is the second example. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? It is important to learn about other cultures. Use detail and examples to explain your opinion. So think about this. This question is a little eccentric because visually they also have a audio file. So just take 10 seconds to think about this. And I'll play the audio file. Right, I don't know if that was 10 seconds.
In this question, you will be asked to talk about a familiar topic. After you hear the question, you will have 15 seconds to prepare a response and 45 seconds to record the response. Do you agree or disagree with the following statement? It is important to learn about other cultures. Use details and examples to explain your opinion. Begin to prepare your response after the beep. Begin speaking after the beep.
So in your headphone, you will hear something like this when you actually do it. For task 2 to 4, it will look something like this. So a paragraph will be shown to you, and then they will give you time to read it. And then after you read it, they will play an audio file, and you're supposed to use these 2 information to answer your questions. So this is a article about the choir, and then they will add competitive events. That's the gist of it.
In this question, you will read a short passage listen to a conversation, and answer a question about them. After you hear the question, you will have 30 seconds to prepare a response and 60 seconds to record the response. City University's choir is changing its performance schedule next year. Read an article about it in the student newspaper. You will have 50 seconds to read the article. Begin reading now. Now, listen to two students discussing the article.
Jim, you're in the choir, right? What do you think about what they're doing next year? This article.
I really like it.
Yeah?
Yeah, the new director's right that it will motivate us.
How's that?
Well, some of the other schools are really good, so we'll really have to work hard to go up against them.
Yeah.
I mean, right now we don't rehearse more than once a week, but if we know we'd be competing with other schools, we probably rehearse more often and improve our singing a lot.
That's true. The more you practice, the better you get. So, what about what the article said about how this will help the program?
I hope it works. Right now, our program is pretty small, but we have some really talented people, and it would be great to attract even more people.
So, how will this plan help?
Well, if we go to these off-campus events and other people hear us and think we're really good, we might be able to get some new students interested in coming to this university to be a part of our music program and perform in our choir concerts.
You're right. I hadn't really thought about that.
The man expresses his opinion about the change described in the article. Briefly summarize the change, then state his opinion about the change and explain the reasons he gives for holding that opinion.
So,
Begin to prepare your response after the beep.
who thinks the man holds a positive attitude towards the change? If you would just raise your hand. Yeah. Did you catch the reasoning? What was one reason why he thought the change was positive?
Because he said at the beginning about he think the director was have the right decision, and he think the competing can make the show getting more rehearsal and make the program bigger than.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And also he said it would attract more prospective students as one of his reasons. So yeah, that's a great response. So that was a conversation type of speaking task, and there's a more academic one where they would most likely you would counter this. This is from the official guide. It's about behaviors where it was helpful to animals in the past, but as the environment changes, it's no longer helpful. This question is a bit more centric because the listening track actually provides quite a few additional information.
In this question, you will read a short passage, listen to a talk, and answer a question about them. After you hear the question, you will have 30 seconds to prepare a response and 60 seconds to record the response. Read a passage about relic behaviors from a biology textbook. You will have 50 seconds to read the passage. Begin reading now. Now listen to part of a lecture in a biology class.
Okay, so a good example of this, found right here in North America, is something an animal called the American pronghorn does. Pronghorns, as you may know, are a kind of deer-like animal. They live out on the open, grassy plains, somewhat in the middle of North America. And they are super fast. Pronghorns are, in fact, noted for being the fastest animal in the Western Hemisphere. Once a pronghorn starts running, zoom! None of its present-day predators, like the bobcat or coyote, can even hope to catch up with it. It's off in a flash. Okay, so why then do pronghorns run so fast? That's the question. Well, it turns out that quite a long time ago, I'm talking tens of thousands of years, things on the grassy plains used to be very different for the pronghorns. Because back then, lions used to live on the plains, chasing and preying upon the pronghorns. And lions, of course, are a very swift-moving mammal, much faster than the bobcat or coyote or other predators that you find on the plains today. But now, however, lions are all extinct in North America. They're no longer a predator of the pronghorn. Tens of thousands of years ago, though, the lions were there, chasing the pronghorns. So, back then, the pronghorn's speed was critical to its survival.
Using the example of the pronghorn and lion, explain the concept of a relict behavior. Begin to prepare your response after the beep.
Does anyone catch the reasoning why, what has the environment changed for the pronghorn and the lion? Okay, so they don't really require that much ability to run that fast anymore because the natural selection mechanism has changed. So that's something that you could catch to answer this question. So due to him, I want to get to note-taking. So this is the structure that, according to Princeton Review, where they want people to strive for, but as I know, under the pressure of the test, it's very hard to do this. But the main thing you want to strive for is to immediately state your opinion if it's an opinionated question, and then continue giving details and examples throughout. And doesn't matter if you got cut off by the timer, it doesn't matter. And what you want to do before check-in is to make sure your equipment are working. Yeah, you want to practice with real TOEFL questions. There are books that don't want to pay the licensing fees and write their own questions, but I would not suggest doing that. And I know a lot of NTU students don't really have an opinion on certain matters, which makes a lot of you a great team player. But in your daily life, maybe try to be a little judgmental, so you'll be more comfortable with dealing the questions on the TOEFL. And taking notes, it's something that we'll get right into right now. So as I mentioned before, note-taking is a skill that on 3 sections of the test you would utilize. The reading is the only one where they would not integrate any form of audio file. Even the writing right now, they present audio files to you. And needless to say, the listening has minutes-long audio file where it's easy to miss critical information. And just gave the reasoning for why note-taking is important. So the first suggestion, these are just suggestions because people perform differently under pressure. So some people are fast writers. You can just write the whole thing on your paper and that's fine, but beware, you want to keep your writing small because the test center are not quite friendly with giving additional paper. The first suggestion is you write down the nouns, verbs, and adjectives. That's it. You omit like function words, which are preposition, articles, auxiliary verbs, and modals. Those are words like have, may. The degree of certainty is not important on the TOEFL. It is very important on tests like LSAT, but on the TOEFL, you do not need to care if they said may or how certain they are. They won't provide any useful insight to the material. So if you apply suggestion 1, it might look something like the notes here. So you can condense the amount of work you have to do while you're listening to an audio file. So the second tip, I wouldn't say this is quite important. This is actually very hard to actually implement in real practice. Just because you under the pressure, I guess most people want to write out the whole word, and that's fine. But for those of you, I know some people are different, so some people might find this helpful. You would write down only the consonants, not the vowels. But if the first letter is the vowel, you want to write that down because people recognize the word by the first letter. So if this is like an abbreviation of sleep symptoms and depression, because vowels don't make up the large amount of the specific word, but consonants do. But if it starts with a vowel, that's where it gets tricky, where you want to write the first.
Was this how you do the task?
I didn't. I write the whole thing out because I can. But that's what I was saying. I have the ability to write everything out, but I understand it's not for everyone. So the tip 3 is just, I did this in practice. Like there are some words that just appear so frequently. So you just want to use a quick symbol like these. So, and then we'll dive into the reading section. So on the reading section, no audio files, 2 passages. Passages don't compare with each other, 2 separate contents. And 35 minutes to answer 20 questions. Some people get scared that, do I need to remember everything? No, you can always go back to what you read. There will be detailed questions, but you can use the test interface to read them over. But in your initial read, some textbooks don't suggest you to read the passage entirely, and you answer by like paragraph 1, 2, 3. But if you read a large amount and you're able to read within 2 minutes, I would suggest you to do that. You want to catch the main idea. So if you want to refer back to a specific part, that will be very easy for you. This question will show up. It's a vocab question. It will state something like the words, and then it will show you the verb in the passage its closest meaning to. For those of you grade English, you might get scared, like different words have an unpopular meaning, like the word material. It usually means like plastic or that kind of stuff. What is a thing made out of? But it can also be important information. It can also mean importance in certain contexts, but usually it will not be twisted to an unusual meaning. So if you have decent level of English, your first intuition, most likely that will be the correct one, but you want to double check it. So you might want to read the sentence that the word is situated in. Also, the test system will highlight where the word is, so there will be no problem referring to it. So it will present itself as something like this, ingenuity. And I guess most people would, first instinct would be D, and that's the correct answer here. So there will be another question called purpose question. Now this is the challenging type. That's why I would say when you do your first read through the passage, you want to catch the main idea, so you can know like why the author is saying something in this paragraph. So this is an article from the official guide, a paragraph, and then they want to ask you, why did the author mention this aspect? So due to time constraints, let's not go to detail on this one, but for your reference, the answer is C for this one. Again, like in your practice, this should be like the harder type of questions that you want to get points on. And they have a very interesting question type, the sentence substitution type. They will always ask you like this: which of the sentence below best expresses the essential information in the highlighted sentence in the passage? Incorrect choices will change the meaning in important ways or leave out essential information. So you want to choose an answer that best mimic what the original sentence is. And you want to eliminate like additional information or information that's just irrelevant, or information that doesn't give out the same, doesn't conform to the original meaning. So, and this question is from the official guide as well. I'll briefly explain. The answer is A, and if you use the official guide, you might recognize this paragraph. And which choice do you think is the most obvious to eliminate for this one? Like you think has no relevance? I would think D is very easy to eliminate, because the original sentence says numerous plants, and then D gives an specific examples, 2 examples of plants, so you would want to cross that out. For B, only a handful. Okay, B contradicts the original sentence directly, only a handful, and numerous are in direct contradiction, so you want to take B out. C is one of the examples that uses fancy words. It doesn't have the connotation connection to the original sentence. This is one of the most challenging types of questions you read on the reading one. A sentence will be shown to you, and then you are to choose 3 sentences out of 5 choices to complete the summary. And this is where it gets interesting. Some choices can actually be factually correct, but it's not important. It will be tempting to choose that kind of choices. So what you want to do is you eliminate the ones where it's factually incorrect in comparison to the passage, and then you work through the unmentioned information and you take that out. And then you're left with the choices that seems factually correct, and you judge by the importance, by how many lines the passage discussed about that particular sentence. So it will look something like this on the interface, and then you would like drag these choices into this, and they will always have a summary sentence presented to you. And another question type is you have to place a certain sentence into the paragraph. And they will show you the sentence, and then they will highlight A, B, C, and D throughout the paragraph, and you have to choose like the best place to place it. A few things to watch out for is, does the paragraph show you a list? Does it say 1, 2, A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4? If it does, you want to read the content of the sentence and see, does it elaborate on one of the items of the list? If it does, you might want to place it somewhere behind it or somewhere before it if it introduces a new thing. The second thing to watch out for is if a sentence is broad and not detailed, but the paragraph contains sentences where it elaborates on the specifics of the subject matter. You want to place this sentence before the detailed explanation. So it will look something like this. In fact, artifacts and pottery from Tiongkok have been discovered in sites as far away as the Mayan lowlands, the Guam Highlands. Does anyone think we should put this sentence in A? Yeah, I agree. Because here we're talking about artifacts and pottery being far away, and the sentence before A, we're talking about the development of their population, the status of the demographic, and behind it, we're talking about the economy. So placing this sentence in A would seem very eccentric, but does anyone think we should place it at B? Yeah, I also agree with you guys. The sentence starting with clearly seems to flow very eloquently between the sentence before it, because the sentence before it is talking about the urban status of this town, and then the sentence starting with clearly is elaborating on it. So I wouldn't disrupt this type of writing. Okay, now we're down to C and D. Who thinks we should put it at C, and who thinks we should put it at D? Can someone raise their hand at D so I can give out the gifts? D is the right answer for this one. This sentence elaborates on the religious context, and it provides more details to the sentence that come before D. So that's why I would think you should place it at D. I introduced like every type of the content on the reading and speaking, but we have some time to discuss. We can like talk. I can talk to you for your specific situation on how to improve your ability on this test.